Alright, and hello everybody, I'm the Super27, and welcome to another Dokkan Battle video. We have another one of these fun discussions for you because I enjoy doing them, you guys enjoy watching them, and since I don't have a phone and I'm currently unable to actually play the game, I don't have any other choice now, do I? So, this is going to be a conversation about how the, rainbow slash whale perspective of the game is much different from, a free-to-play character's, sort of experience, or someone who only puts a little bit of money into the game every now and then. Why do these different, factions, these two different groups of people who play this game, why do they have different opinions on certain mechanics? Why do they have differing opinions about certain characters? Why does, a character like STR Vegito seem really powerful to a free-to-play player, but to someone like the True DT is a unit who can certainly, sell you in a lot of these events, even though the character himself is pretty powerful. So I have a couple of examples up here that we're going to pull up, just in case I need to pull up any other units here. I will be obviously having this tab open right here, but we're going to start off with the boy STR Vegito. Now, if we're looking at Vegito, he seems very powerful in his baseline kit. He's getting 200 stats, meaning that he's up there with, starter turn with a lot of other 2024 characters. 30% damage reduction by itself is not my favorite, but he has the potential to get up to 50%, which is good. He is a stacker, a defensive stacker, which in most cases is more important, especially since he isn't a character who has, a big super attack effect or, a big active skill, but he is a character who, once he transforms, has those counters and the crit, so maybe if he also stacked attack, that would be much more favorable in his position, but that's not really here nor there. So why does a character, or why do players view this character as a bit of a liability when it comes to running him? Because if we're going down here, I will admit, while his transform state is really good, I will say certain parts of it are a little undertuned compared to other units who are around them. So, yeah, they're at 250 stats at the start of turn. Let's see here. They have Guard, which is super nice, but that's only for their first 3 turns. They have 30% damage reduction, and then an extra 30% if they're getting hit by a normal attack. Obviously, they have the counters against normal attacks. They have the Scouter for 10 turns. This is one of the most stupid abilities in the game. And on the turn that you're able to transform them, that is a full heal. This is a very powerful character, but again, just slightly, I would argue, slightly undertuned compared to other units that have dropped this year. But a lot of people in the community, specifically, I will argue, lower players who don't put as much money into the game, they see this character's EZA and they go Awooga, this guy's amazing. And to be fair, there are a lot of reasons why. Again, 200%, so if you don't have, a lot of the modern units, this is one of these units because he dropped very early on Global, during, the Angel SSJ3 Fat Boost celebration or whatever. Obviously, he's a very, self-reliant character. He doesn't really require a lot of orbs. Again, he is stacking. He's a critting character who has crit built into his passive, so if you only have him at, 69%, you don't have to worry about funneling a lot of crit into his hidden potential system. You can focus on additional or dodge or whatever to kind of either make him more powerful by hoping to get that hidden potential super, or you can give him some dodge, that way he can be a little bit more defensive. He's just a very easy character to use, but if you're a more experienced player, you can look at a couple of his little oopsies here. So he has this buff right here where he gets an extra 50% to stats and a guaranteed super on his first turn. Then every subsequent turn when you have 77% or more HP at the start of turn. Now, we'll come back to this. But I will say that this is relevant. But the main thing that makes players not as fond of this character is that right here. He gets 20% crit and 20% damage reduction if he has 50% or more HP at the start when he attacks, basically. So let's say you're at 100% HP, you have this guy in slot 2, your slot 1 unit gets hit, you lose 60% of your HP, and then all of a sudden, yikes. This ability right here, this crazy ability, goes away, where you'd be like, oh, we'll put him in a slot 1. This is unfortunately not a slot 1 character, which is kind of crazy to say. 200% defense right here, even with a couple of stacks up, just having 50% damage reduction and 200 stats at the start of turn and potentially a couple stacks, that is not enough for this guy to be able to reliably tank normals, let alone tank a super. I don't even think this character post-super in this form would be able to eat them most of the time and survive. So it's a little bit sucky that you can lose out on some of these powers when there are characters who don't have that ability. I think if this was at a start of turn, this wouldn't be nearly as big of a deal. But the fact that this is an ability you can enter a turn having and then lose it in the middle of the turn before this character has anything to really do about it is a major, major shame. But will his transformation makes up for that, right? Well, that's where this comes into play. Can be activated when HP is 77% or less starting from the 4th turn from start of battle. I mean, that seems very simple, right? You know, turn 4, that's when, like, some of these fights are starting to get really hard, or maybe you're in a fight that has a hard phase 1, and then you need the full heal of Vegito. It's this tricky little thing right here. Let's see if anyone is able to kind of connect the dots to see where my argument for this video might be going. But can be activated when HP is 77% or less. But then, if you are able to transform with him, because again, turn 4, that's very early on in a lot of these fights, you do get a very powerful unit who can be a huge, like, addition to any team. Again, this is a character who really can't get caught by supers. I mean, obviously, he only has 30% damage reduction against them, which isn't great, but 60% damage reduction against normals with all the stacks that you're going to have in his base, potentially having guard, and by having him in slot 2 or in slot 3, you're going to get a lot of defensive raises throughout the turn as well. So he can be a relatively tanky character, plus then you're going to be doing devastating damage with all of your counters, which is super, super nice. So why do some people value this character a lot more than others? Again, we're gonna dive back into him, but let's go to our next candidate of the video. I know this isn't a good look. I promise I'm a Vegito standboy. I promise. But we're gonna over here to the blue boys. A very decisive? That's not the word. What am I looking for? Divisive? Divisive. A very divisive release from last year. You have people like Rhodey who think that this is arguably a top... Where does Rhodey have him? Like top 15, top 10 in the game, maybe? Somewhere around there. I don't know. I would assume that's probably where they place them. Or then you have people on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. The most famous one that I can think about at the top of my mind is Truth, comparing this guy to the LR Super Saiyan 4 Goku and DFE Super Trunks, saying that DFE Super Trunks is actually better than both of those characters, and that roughly these guys would be like the 70th best character in the game, roughly their round. Those are two like very famous big heads in the community with very wildly differently opinions. So why is this kind of a character who's a little bit divisive, and maybe some more weaker players would prefer them, while some more experienced players might dislike them? Well, for starters, if you're a free-to-play player, this is probably the best leader skill in the game. I mean, it would have to be, just because you can run literally any superclass character on it. And obviously, like, Battle of Fate is always going to be good. Future Saga isn't currently good at the moment. Power Beyond Super Saiyan... Is Beast Gohan on here? Interestingly enough, Beast Gohan is not on Power Beyond Super Saiyan. Alright. Interesting. Wait, but is UI? Is UI on this team? UI Goku isn't on there. Oh, okay. I thought he was. Well, I guess that makes more sense than that Beast isn't on there. But Beast is on Battle of Fate, so it doesn't necessarily matter a whole lot. But, like, this is a very good category right here. And then Realm of Gods always is going to be really good. This is, what, Time Travelers? So, yeah, one of the better leader skills in the game. Maybe not the best, but definitely one of the best. And this is a character who, for, like, shorter events can go into slot 1 as long as you're running just another Future Saga category ally. Again, Future isn't in the best space right now, but if you're running just 2 of him as your friend lead, that does fulfill this requirement for this to activate. So they have their extra defense, and then they have their guard for the first couple of turns. Now, this is another example of a stacking character, and I feel like players who might not have, like, again, their characters being rainbowed, being able to get their characters to build up to more and more impressive stats, I feel like is very appealing to them. But this is where, like, the real divisive, I don't know what I'm trying to say anymore. The real, like, controversy of this character comes in. So, can be activated their transformation condition to go into VB, who I do want to say this right now. VB is probably, like, this transformed state, I would argue, like, definitely in the contention for top 15 in the game. Like, if we're looking at here, really high stats at the start of turn. They have a really stupidly powerful active skill, giving them guaranteed dodge for the 1 turn. They also have the damage reduction. They're super effective against all types. They're launching, like, a radzillion amount of additionals. So, you get a huge amount of payoff for the character. But how do you transform? Now, some people have called it a skill check. Some people have said it's just bullshit. Again, we'll get into it, why I feel the way that I do about this in just a moment. But this can be activated from the 5th turn from their first appearance when HP is 70% or below, or turn 7, when there is a Future Saga category participating on the... Is it on the team? I'm assuming, since it says participating in the attack, I have this on the JP version instead of the English version, but I'm assuming this is on the attacking turn. You're able to transform with them on turn 7. Now, I'm not a huge fan of deep, like, way late into the fight transformation conditions, because if you get them, like, slot 3, you're going to be stuck with this for a long time. But it is nice that they have 2 possible ways of transforming. It's just a little bit unfortunate that both of the transformation conditions are a little bit mid. And then the final unit who we're going to be discussing today is my boy. merge Zamasu, who, again, if you are a free-to-play player or a new player, one of the better leader skills in the game. Again, just having unrestricted extreme class leader, which is really good, because a lot of extreme class characters don't inherently always work the best together, and extreme class really isn't in like the greatest zone right now if you're not running them on super bosses. But if you have like a couple of super bosses characters, but you don't have like a super bosses lead, you have a leader right here essentially. Like if you summoned for Broly, didn't get Broly, use this guy as your friend lead, then, you know, have a friend Broly, and then you will be able to just kind of cruise, you know what I'm saying? You still get that utility. And then this character is, again, very, very good at the start of fights. They have 80% damage reduction, goes all the way down to 40%. This is the character who can do a lot of damage, and they have a very good transformation with their domain. This is the only character in the game who has a domain where they literally just say no to damage. It's not a dodge, so I believe this character can actually be stunned and sealed should they be hit by a super? Because I know it nullifies it, but I know if you nullify a super, like if you have like a super nullification, I think the effects still hit your character. I'm trying to think back. Has there ever been a time where I've seen 23rd World Tournament Goku get hit by a like a beam super and been debuffed? I'm trying to think, and I'm actually thinking no, he doesn't. So I'm going to actually say, no, never mind. I don't think that he can be stunned or sealed. So this is just essentially guaranteed dodge, just with a little fancy animation. He also becomes like a nice support type character once you're able to do this up. You know, he orb changes or whatever. And then he helps Worldwide Chaos if you give him enough of his tech orbs. He has the domain effect itself, which, where does it specify what the domain does? Is it on the other page? Like, the different wikis say different things. Yeah, here we go. So superclass enemies and allies take an extra 30% damage. We are in a meta where a lot of the hardest bosses in the game are actually superclass characters. Goku and Frieza, Sword of Hope Trunks, Supreme Magnificent Battle Beast Gohan, Gogeta. Like, the really only difficult the only two difficult extreme class fights we have at the moment are Cell Max, who this character would be really good for, because at the start of the fight, it's probably where that's the hardest, and that's when he has his most damage reduction. And then Kid Buu. Now, this guy, I don't know if I would really feel comfortable running him in Kid Buu, because that is a very devastating fight. But how are you able to activate his domain? So it can be activated from his 5th turn from his first appearance when HP is 70% or below, or turn 7 with another Future Saga category ally participating in the same turn. So, kids, everyone, pop quiz. What do all three of these characters have in common? They have an HP restriction to go into their good forms. So, the baseline of this argument is, why do certain, you know, like, again, I don't want to say weaker players or newer players. I don't really have, like, a good describing word for it, because I don't want to say free-to-play either, because that's not always the case, but, like, the whales and the not whales, I guess. So why is this character a little bit more favored when you don't have all rainbow units? So, when you have a full rainbow team, for the most part, we're gonna pull this up, right? For the most part, you die in one hit. You know what I mean? There's not really, like, the boss doesn't whittle you down anymore. Like, we're not going up against, like, the God event. We're not going up against, like, the Legendary Goku event. We're not going through one of these, like, long fights where you're going to be stuck at, like, 40% HP for the lot of the fight. You're going to be trying to collect orbs, and then you get hit by a super, and you go all the way down to 35%, and you can get orbs to get back up, and you have some of these characters who can heal you for a little bit. We're not in that meta anymore. It is pretty much, do you tank a super, or do you not tank a super? Because some of the best units in the game, Beast Gohan is the one that I can think of right off the top of my head. Let's say you're fighting him in Goku and Frieza. They're under 50% HP. He does not have his passive up. I've seen this guy get cooked. This is the best unit in the game. Dying in one hit because they always super in slot 1. This guy needs to super to be able to tank it. Yeah, I mean, 5.7, like, that's devastating. 5.7 million? What character can live that before supering outside of, like, dodging? Jiren, maybe? Jiren and his standby could probably live it. But if we're looking at, like, this is a very good character. If we're looking at, like, what they're able to do. 177 stats, so a little bit low by today's standards, but they have 50% damage reduction, and then each time they perform a super, they get more damage reduction by 17%. So just with a couple additionals, like, yeah, these guys would be fine in, like, slot 2 or 3 or whatever. You can't put them into slot 1, just because how devastating the bosses are. So if there is a super in slot 2, these guys are fine, but if you have to put them into slot 1, 50% damage reduction, that's not enough. Cell Max. Cell Max is the character who, once his active skill has been used and his passive is gone, he can struggle to tank a lot of these big boss supers because he doesn't even get defense on his super attack effect. If we're looking at a character like Broly, even transformed, only has, what, 52% damage reduction? You can't put him into slot 1, and if he gets tagged by super transformed or in his base form, especially in his base form, you're probably dead. It doesn't matter if you have them rainbowed. It doesn't matter if you do a billion additionals. That's just how the game is right now. It's like, let's go ahead and actually, let's pull this up. Let's pull this up right down here. So that way I can actually show you guys specifically what I am referring to. Where is here? Okay. So we go to this new stage right down here. Okay, everything is being translated. So as you can see, these super attacks, like 1.1, believe it or not, this is low for damage. This is like getting there. This is devastating. And then this is pretty devastating, but it can go up to double that. 5.7 million when this is up, because it just doubles its attack stat. Like, I don't think I have to be the one to tell you this. Most characters are not going to live this, especially when this is up. Again, does not matter if you have 875,000 HP. Doesn't matter if you have rainbow characters. Just because you live or you die. Let's show another example. What's another, like, really good example? We can show up Cell Max, I guess. Cell Max would probably be a good example of something that we can pull up. Where is the Cell Max event? Or, you know what? We won't pull that one up because I don't want to go searching for it. We can do Gogeta, because Gogeta is right down here, and that is Beast Gohan. Gogeta? Yeah, here we go. Gogeta, 2.7. Again, this is like a very devastating amount of damage, especially since on his super attack effect, if we can translate it here. Hello? There we go. He's actually getting an attack buff as well. So this, he's not hitting for 2.7. It's actually a little bit more devastating than that. So, there are, like again, there's niche circumstances where you're able to live this, like, maybe with, like, the Beast Gohan active skill or whatever, you would be able to survive this. But most of the time, if you are losing a fight, it is because you either get caught by a character who can't tank a super, or you get caught by a character who you thought could tank a super, but then actually they weren't built up enough. That's just how the dice fall, you know what I mean? And that's okay, you know, because if I'm being honest, this is, like, the most difficult content has probably ever been. Has been this year, and that's one of the reasons why I feel like this has been such a good year, because a lot of the fights, while extremely difficult, they feel fair to an extent, because we actually have, like, good units that, like, if you lose a lot of the time, I do feel like it's kind of fair, you know what I mean? Like, you got, honest to God, you got caught, or you made a risky play, and it's whatever. It's not like, it's not just BS a lot of the time. Golden Frieza and Goku is a little bit of an example, or an exception to that rule, because I do think that they are relatively BS. I don't think that fight is fair at all with how long it is and all the stupid mechanics in it. I think that is just, like, a poor fight. But that's just my opinion. I don't know if that's, like, a community, like, consensus thing, or if that might be a hot take. I don't know. But it feels like you really have to strategize this year, because we have very competent units. We have a lot of different ways that we can work around certain bosses. Like, this is one of the most devastating bosses, in my opinion, because each time you hit him, he gets stronger, but you're able to debuff him. So a lot of debuffing characters work really well in here, so you're able to actually nullify this. But his super attack effect, when he's fully built up, is like a 4 million something. So we see, like, there's, like, potential mind games for, like, all these supers. But again, if you don't bring the right team, very rarely, I would argue, that you could have any unit who can go slot 1 before you super and eat 4 million. Like, consistently. But, that brings this in. So these guys, when you have a full Rainbow Team, 875% HP, it's actually hard to reliably get this and not die. Now, you can play around it. That's where, like, I feel like the whole skill check argument comes in from, where, like, you can intentionally take damage. You can make risky plays. You can do this, that, or whatever, so that you can lose HP intentionally, so that you can beat these HP restrictions, so that you can get this massive amount of payoff. Sorry, my internet went out there for a second. But, like, I understand, like, why Dokkan would maybe be, like, afraid, potentially, of characters like this, just because this is a very dominant character. But then, you know, like, 6 months later, they gave us Beast Gohan, so, like, I understand you don't want to just give us all these toys that make the game completely worthless, but then you gave us a bunch of toys that made a lot of the fights completely worthless. So, again, it is possible. There are certain things that you are able to do. You have wiggle room where you can do certain things. That is not his active skill. What? That is his active skill when he's transformed. Why is that showing up here? I don't know. The wiki's being a little bit weird. But, so, a lot of the time, these characters, you're not going to be able to see their maximum potential. You're not going to be able to reliably see, like, the Zamasu domain, okay? Because you're going to be going the whole fight. You're going to be around the 100% to, like, 80% mark, I would say is probably the most common. But more likely on the upper end. Especially since so many characters have, like, really high HP that they heal so much with orbs. And a character like, let's see, like... This character, after they super, does not take damage. This is a dodging character. This character does not take damage. Does not take damage. After super, does not really take damage. Does not take damage if you give them 7 orbs. These guys, they can take a little bit of damage. I won't hold you. This guy can take damage, like, maybe at the start of the fight. And if you transfer him, like, too prematurely and you end up losing his, all of his damage reduction, yeah, he would take damage. This character can take damage, like, turn 1, slot 1, if there's, like, 7 attacks in slot 1. Outside of that, not really. You can maybe get caught later in fights. Again, at the early stages of the fight before you're really able to get built up, but that's about it. So I haven't seen Jiren get cooked. So if Jiren can get cooked, let me know, but I haven't seen any footage of it. This is a character who can eat 1 attack and not really take any damage. This is a character for very early on, doesn't really take a whole lot of damage. So it is kind of hard to consistently be at a low HP margin. But, I mean, I think any character on here can get caught. You can get unlucky. Again, the game is a bunch of zeros and ones at the end of the day. RNG can absolutely screw you over. And, again, for whatever reason, let's say you have to put these guys in slot 1. Or the old, like, Dispo doesn't dodge and he gets caught. Or this guy doesn't dodge for whatever reason and he gets caught. But in most of those situations, if that happens, you are just dying. You're not living, you're not taking 600k HP and then you're still surviving the end of the turn. That doesn't happen super frequently for, like, these rainbowed players. It is you get unlucky or you make a mistake and you lose for that mistake. That's kind of what Dokkan is. That's kind of like how it is right now. Because again, you really have to strategize. You really have to be smart with how you use your characters, where you put your characters, when you use certain abilities. You have to play smart. And that's, again, that's why I kind of think this year is like the most fun we've had in a long time. Because everything is hard, but it's like playing a game of chess with a computer. You know, you have every move, like everything you need is at your disposal. It's just, can you maneuver your pieces right to get lucky? It's kind of what it feels like at the very least. But now, let's look at this through a little bit of a different lens. Let's say that you are a brand new player, you've been playing for about a year and a half, you have a couple of units, 55%, let's say you don't have anything above 79, you're going into these difficult events, but you have, like, the Vegeta team, leading Pure Saiyans, and you have these guys. When you don't have all these units rainbowed, you're naturally going to have less HP. These units miss out on stats when they're not at 100%. Because of the hidden potential, those nodes give them extra buffs. So it is actually easier for you to drop below these thresholds at the start of a turn. Now, again, super attacks a lot of time. If you get caught by super by the wrong character, if like rainbow whales aren't surviving that, you aren't surviving it either. But there are plenty of people, myself included, I don't have a rainbow box, and I really pride myself on the fact that I don't have a rainbow box, but I beat every event in the game. Or at least the ones that I had access to. You know, I haven't been able to do, like, Sword of Hope. I haven't been able to do any of the new fights that have jumped in the game currently. So maybe, I don't know, whenever I do get my phone fixed, I might be eating my words, saying, like, oh, no, the game's too hard. But for the most part, I'm able to, you know, by making smart plays, I'm able to do everything. Because most of the time, I do no items. Not from, like, my initial runs. If, like, I would much rather get a dub first, but then I always go back and I try different setups until I can get a no item. But I've no item every event in the game at this point that I had access to at the very least. And I don't have a lot of rainbowed units. It's just, again, smart plays, maneuvering characters, knowing what a character can and cannot do. But I have been able to get this transformation a lot when I have used this character. And I mean a lot. And the payoff is huge. He's essentially untouchable for his first couple of turns. And then one of the biggest things about this game, knowing where to put your most defensive characters. Like, sometimes this just shows you that you're dead. Like, that is true. Sometimes this is a worthless ability. But it also shows you, it takes away one of those random elements. Where's the boss going to super? Where's the boss going to do this? I don't have to guess when I have Vegito. And I feel like I'm more able to get this ability because where we may be, let's say you're a whale and I'm not. We can use the exact same team. You will have 875,000 HP. I might just have 8,000. And I know that may not sound like a huge difference, difference, but when bosses are launching potentially 4 millions, yeah, that's a nice little cushion between if I take more damage against normals, I can enter turn 4, and I can transform. I get a full heal, I get a pretty much an untouchable character who's going to be doing a lot, and I mean a lot of damage, meaning that I can maybe rush through an event really quickly. He gives a lot of utility. Same here. Turn 5, their 5th turn. Again, I have less HP. My characters just naturally have less defense. I'm going to get cooked more. I'm going to struggle a little bit more, but that means I am actually going to get this payoff more, because I don't really get caught. Like, because again, if I get caught, I get caught. But if I play normally, I'm just naturally going to take more damage. We can, again, same team, same exact event. Let's just say we get rid of all randomness. The attacks are in the exact same spot every single time. I'm just naturally going to take more against normals. That's not like a, oh my god, that's what happens. That's not cope. That's not like an argument or whatever. Because I have this guy at 69%. I have seen VB probably more times than Truth has. And it's not like I'm going out of my way to take damage. I'm just doing the plays that I need to do to survive. And ultimately, I'm getting a payoff for it. This is a unit who I feel like is better for new players. Now, if you're, again, at full rainbow status, I understand wholeheartedly that this guy is not as good as like he once was. Now, I will admit this, I am actually kind of becoming a defender of this character. I think they receive way too much hate. I've been saying this for the longest time. I was like, at the time, they were one of the best units, but they've started to fallen off. I think they're still competent. I will say that. I really only think, like, Rhodey is someone who is, like, dedicated enough to, like, go out of their way to make this character, like, consistently look good and feel good. At the same time, I mean, going out of their way isn't, like, the right term. I feel like they just have the dedication, because they don't, like, necessarily, like, cheese or anything, and I mean, with items, you can make any character look good, or if RNG is on your side, you can make any character look good, but, like, the things that they actually pull off, if you watch, like, their Twitter stuff, it's actually really incredible, and that's why I'm like, okay, I am becoming a little bit more of a defender of this character. I understand their flaws, but I understand that the payoff is very insane. Again, I would argue that if this was just a base character, we're talking top 15. And I really do mean that for LRs. I don't know about in like the total game. I would have to like really sit down and like think about it. But like the inconsistency of this character when you are at rainbowed status, because again, you are either at 100% or you are at 0%. There's not really an in-between. So if you're using this character, they lose their guard. You don't have that right amount, that just right amount of HP. You could be at 71% and just miss out on that transformation, and they're not really offering a whole lot outside of just being a 50% chance to dodge character. So you could be on turn 5, and this character can be the exact same as STR Kefla turn 1, although I would argue STR Kefla is probably a little bit better than these guys without their guard, because yeah, they're both, you know, 50% chance to dodge characters, but she gets a little bit more defense at the start of turn, she can double super with 6 orbs, and I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of like what we're getting at. But like, again, these payoffs are very common, or not very common, but more common for just naturally weaker teams going into these harder fights. So you get these huge payoffs, which is why I feel like there are different parts of the community that value these characters differently, because they are fundamentally, they are playing the game differently. Because, again, same units, same teams going to the exact same event, saying we get attacked in the exact same slots, we do the exact same plays, I will naturally take more damage than you. So I will be able to get infinite Zamasu more commonly than you will. Zamasu might die for you, because yeah, he just has 40% damage reduction once you get deep into these fights, which like, 40% is not enough. Especially since like he doesn't like stack defense or anything. He actually only gets 30% on his 18 key and everything. And I mean, even with big bad bosses up, this character can kind of get cooked. He's not getting like the most like outrageous amount of stats at the start of turn or anything. Like his stats are kind of already being crept out. Like look at this, only 100 at the start of turn. I mean, granted, he gets more like when there's not a realm of god enemy, but that's neither here nor there. So let me know what you kind of think about this argument. Like, are there some characters who are worse at these standpoints? Now, granted, I only mentioned specifically like rainbowed characters who have HP requirements, but I feel like Broly should also kind of be brought up into this discussion, because Broly is just naturally so powerful when you have him at rainbowed. He goes through events too quickly. I think that these guys are actually another example of that. They are so powerful that they go through fights too quickly, meaning these characters who need to get hit to build up, these characters who need to do supers to get built up, they struggle much more when you have a bunch of rainbowed units around them. Because when you have every unit rainbowed, you're naturally going to be doing more damage, and you're naturally going to be killing these bosses and these phases way sooner than you think that you would want to. Meaning, like, you could blitz a fight to the point where, like, Gogeta, you're not able to transform with him to get this. There's a chance that he could be in slot 1, turn 3, you're going up against the boss who launches 1.7? Is that what Android 17 does? Let's see, what is Android 17? I think it's 1.7? Yeah, you could go, because this is nothing. 30 million HP, that's nothing. You can blitz through that. When you're rainbowed, you can blitz through this. Then you could get stuck in a situation like this, where he's not built up, he doesn't have his dodge at all in his passive. Where did I put him? Hello? Oh, there he is. He doesn't have dodge in his passive or anything. His only defensive mechanic, truly, is that he has guard for 3 turns. So, like, what do you do in this situation? You kind of die. And how could you avoid going into this situation? You could have your characters not all be rainbowed, and you could do less damage. And that's literally your only counterplay. That's literally your only counterplay. So I don't know if necessarily saying that, like, having some of your characters be at, like, 79% would be more optimal. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't want anyone to kind of get my words crossed here. I'm just saying that certain characters, you're able to see their potential more often when you have weaker units around them, just because, obviously, when you're not doing as much damage, that's more time to get built up. Now, to be fair, that's also more time to get cooked. There's a reason why so many of these characters do so much damage, and why there's a mindset in the community that I need to kill the boss before the boss can kill me. I literally made a video about that just the other day, saying, is damage underrated? Because, yeah, if you kill a boss before a boss ever has a chance to kill you, that would sound like it's the best possible defense in the game. Just going so quick, you never have a chance for any of your units to fraud you. Sounds pretty good, especially when so many characters need to be built up in different ways. Some units need to get hit, some units need to dodge, some units need to super, some just need to perform attacks in general. And like, where is he at? Where's he at? This is like a very prime example of this, because this unit is a god on turn 1 with 90% damage reduction and having essentially guaranteed crits for his first couple of turns. And if you're not going fast with him, you're kind of using him wrong, because he's a unit who is meant to go in slot 1, because he has guard and damage reduction. He has the crits. He has this really powerful active skill, which gives him guaranteed crits for that 1 turn. He wants you to go through events as quickly as possible, because he does lose, like, steam as you go deeper in. So this is a unit who would probably be better on a rainbow team as opposed to a 55% team. Because, again, when you're just using 55%, naturally you're going to go slower, so he might not be nearly as, like, free-to-play friendly. But a character like this, who at 55%, you know, it would be much easier for you to get this by dying. Now, all of a sudden, Boo looks way better, because Boo is a character who, like, when I'm watching Truth's videos, I mean, yeah, there are times where, like, you can put him into slot 1 again early into fights, or if you don't have your guard, you're pretty much just smoked at that point. But how often do you see this happen just naturally and not being like, okay, I need to put Boo in this slot because I need him to die? How often does that happen naturally? Not very often, because if you're playing Boo, like, the most optimally, like, if he didn't have this, if you're playing Boo optimally, this would never happen. Like, he would never die. He's too good to die unless you go out of your way to let him die. Or unless, again, you're fighting, like, STR Kid Boo, and there's 6 attacks in slot 1, and he's going to take 115 million per hit. But when you're at 55%, this can happen naturally, I would argue. I mean, I've used a friend, Fat Boo, because I don't have Fat Boo. I've used him in a lot of different events, and I've had him die, again, just in slot 1. 2 supers after he is supered. I'm able to get this up, and then, yo, we're in God mode. We're cooking. So there are a lot of these units where, like, sometimes having too many stats can actually hurt them. Whereas if you are a weaker player, or you don't have as much of an experienced box, some of these characters' kits actually benefit you more because you were able to actually see and utilize some of their more niche abilities a little bit more readily. So, let me know what you think. But that will be all for this time, guys. I've been the Super 27. I'm a variety Twitch streamer, and I come in. What the fuck? We're gonna do that one again. Alright, guys, that's going to be all for this time. I've been the Super 27. I'm a variety Twitch streamer and an upcoming PNG YouTuber trying to make it big in the world. I have a Twitter, a Twitch, a TikTok, and a YouTube, the links of which can all be found in the description of this video. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, share me around, and leave me a comment, positive, negative, or indifferent. I would love just any sort of interaction I can get from you guys, but that'll be all for now. So, as always, I've been the Super 27. and I am signing off.